Welcome back, everyone. I'm Yossi Goslin, NBA salary cap expert, and wow, we just had one of the more surprising Woj bombs in a while. Mikal Bridges is heading to the New York Knicks. Out of all the teams I could have possibly imagined him getting traded to, which is a lot because with his salary, he can be traded just about anywhere. The Knicks were probably one of the very last I could have seen happening, but it's happening. So let's just get into it. I am going to analyze the trade for both the Knicks and the Nets. But before I do, if you're new to the channel or have been here before, please like and subscribe. All right, so here is the trade according to Woj, and as of this recording, this is the exact trade. There hasn't been any other additional details, any other players being involved. It is Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks for Bojan Bogdanovic, who will be the primary matching salary to make the trade work, for 4 unprotected first-round picks, and those are from the Knicks, so it's going to be their own picks in the odd numbered years, 2025, 2027, 2029, and 2031, and a Bucks pick, which is in 2025, and a couple in a second rounder and a pick swap. So first, let's get into the Knicks side of things and show how this impacts their rest of free agency plans, because this trade actually will make somewhat of an impact in that. So the trade itself, let's start with that. They traded Bojan Bogdanovic straight up for Mikal Bridges. The money works straight up. The thing about Bogdanovic is that his salary was mostly non-guaranteed. It was going to be fully guaranteed by the end of the month. And there was an expectation that the Knicks would only keep him and get it fully guaranteed to $19 million if they had a trade lined up where they can trade him to bring in an upgrade. And they did. So they are now swapping him straight up for Bridges. The salary matching is pretty clean because both make pretty, equal tier salaries. However, Mikal Bridges makes more than Bogdanovic. So because of that, and as of this reporting, there is no other players being sent down the Knicks side. Because the Knicks are taking in more money than they're sending out, they are now hard capped to the $178.7 million first apron. They can no longer exceed this amount for any reason. And if you look at the rest of the roster, what are the main free agents? OG Anunoby, Isaiah Hartenstein. Those are the two guys that they want to bring back the most. And it might take like all the space they have left within that hard cap to bring back OG Anunoby on his first year salary. And there's already been some reporting, first by Ian Begley of SNY, and then shortly after Woj said that sounds like Isaiah Hartenstein might not be coming back. There was a way that they could retain both players while staying below this $178.7 million amount. But if Isaiah Hartenstein isn't coming back, then that kind of makes things simple. So where do the Knicks go from here? One, sounds like that OG Anunoby the Knicks are determined to resign him, and I'm expecting them to bring him back. They gave up a considerable amount to bring him in. So if they bring him in, that's going to take up most of their hard cap space, but they still need to fill out the roster. They still need to get to at least 14 players, number one, within that amount. So they're going to have to shed some salary elsewhere. But not only that, they're going to have to shed salary not only to get below that first apron and field the roster, but they need a center now because they've got Mitchell Robinson, and he's been in trade rumors recently. It sounds like the Knicks might just be tired of all his injuries and unavailability. And the other thing is, I'm not sure how Julius Randle totally fits in this, because if you're bringing back OG, you just brought in Mikal Bridges, and you've got Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo in the backcourt. Yeah, you could bring DiVincenzo off the bench, but as a basketball fit, I'm not totally loving Randle's inclusion in this. So just kind of speculative on my part, I can see the Knicks trading Julius Randle not only to save money. I mean, they could do that with Mitchell Robinson just through that to help resolve their apron issues, but also maybe to get a new replacement center if it is true that Isaiah Hartenstein isn't coming back. So I want to show a projection to illustrate why the Knicks need to reshuffle their payroll just a little bit, and that mainly involves OG Anunoby and what his salary can come into. So when I did my Knicks video last month, I projected him to get around $40 million a year. So if it was a 5-year, $200 million deal, that could start as low as $35 million. And there's been some reporting that OG hasn't been pleased with what the Knicks have been offering, which makes me start to think that his starting salary in the first year is going to come up a lot higher than maybe any of us anticipated. So just to be safe in how I'm going to project things until, he's officially signed, I am going to put his maximum allowable salary. So he can get up to a first year salary of $42.3 million. If he gets that, doesn't necessarily mean he's getting like the full 4 or 5 year max or anything like that. Could be a shorter term deal. I'm sure he actually probably gets a little less than that. But just to be safe, I'm going to put that amount. And when you put in the rest of the roster, they still have their first round picks in the draft tonight and their second round pick. I'm sure some of those picks will get traded. They are roughly $6.4 million above the first apron. So that is not going to be possible. Like they're not going to be able to re-sign OG to up to that amount with the rest of this roster being this way, which means they're going to have to save some money somehow. Mitchell, like I mentioned earlier, Mitchell Robinson's name has been in trade rumors, and I'm speculating maybe Julius Randle gets moved. But overall, yeah, the Knicks, they still have some moves to make. But as far as the trade goes, I think they traded a bit too much for him. Trading 4 unprotected first round picks, that's something that's reserved for like all NBA players based on the at least. And Mikal Bridges hasn't even been an all-star. Can he be one? Sure. I'm not anticipating him getting to like all NBA level, but just in terms of what the Knicks could have put, obviously maybe Giannis wasn't available, anyone at that caliber. So maybe the Knicks knew that this was the best they can get, and obviously now they're fulfilling the Villanova team. So they have that, but not exactly the type of deal that you trade like almost every single pick you have for. Now let's get into Brooklyn Nets side of things, and the biggest thing is obviously all these picks that they've gotten. And this Kevin Durant trade is just the trade that keeps on giving. They got 4 unprotected first round picks for him from the Phoenix Suns, as well as another guy in Mikal Bridges, who they just flipped for another 4 unprotected first round picks from the Knicks. That is a generational haul. I don't care who the team is or how good they're projected to be. If you can get that type of deal for just about any player, I think you just take it. And we already see the Suns, their outlook is looking pretty shaky. Now they also did another trade with the Rockets where they swapped some of the Suns picks and they got some of their own picks back. But by my count, I think they have about 15 first round picks over the next 7 drafts. I might be off a little bit because the details of the Rockets trade is a little confusing, but I think that's what they're working with, which would give them one of the biggest surpluses in first round draft picks. Might only be second to OKC. I haven't done the math, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but should be pretty close. But one of the other big benefits of this trade, especially the one with Houston, is that they got their 2025 first round pick swap back. So as part of that James Harden trade from years ago, one of the things that they traded was a bunch of first round picks, but also some pick swaps, and they just traded their first round pick in this tonight's draft. It's number 3. Houston has it, but the Rockets also have the right to swap first round picks in 2025, which means the Nets can't comfortably bottom out and get the reward of their own first round pick if they end up bad, which, look, the Nets were just awful last year. That's what was most likely going to happen. I don't think any stars were coming. I'm sure the Nets got an indication of that when they went ahead and did this trade. And now, look, this team's awful. It's going to stay pretty bad. They're probably going to bring back Nick Claxton still. I don't think this changes anything there. And they can now comfortably just bottom out and get a good pick in what's supposed to be a strong draft in next year's draft. If you haven't seen my Nets video from a couple weeks ago, you should definitely check that out, because I just compared the paths where the Nets can continue just trying to be good and get another and try to trade their picks for a star, or maybe work out something with Houston where they get some of their picks back so they can actually start drafting some young players and build towards something, because this was just not a sustainable thing what they were doing. So I'm kudos to the organization for doing this trade, and now they can just take a step back and rebuild. But when we look at the Nets payroll, nothing really changed. So Bojan Bogdanovic, he had that partial guarantee, but it's going to be increased to at least 14 million to make this trade work. So if you're wondering, okay, can the Nets just waive him and save a bunch of money, maybe have cap space? No. So it's going to be at least 14 million guaranteed to make this trade work, which means he's probably going to get the full thing guaranteed, and they're going to keep him on the roster, which makes him a trade candidate. So that's number one. And yeah, they still have like $40 million below the tax. They're going to want to not exceed the tax, that $171 million amount. And that's plenty of room to re-sign Nick Claxton. I'm guessing he gets somewhere in the low 20s annually. And so you can see, yeah, they're not projected to have cap space if they waive Bojan Bogdanovic and whatever non-guaranteed money they have. And one other thing is they can generate a new $21.7 million trade exception for Mikal Bridges if they take Bogdanovic into the Spencer Dinwiddie trade exception. So basically, all they're really doing is getting an additional $1.4 million a bigger trade exception by rolling this one over into a bigger one. So where do the Nets go from here? We obviously know that they're going to bottom out. They're going to rebuild. They're going to develop some young players. But one, they have some veterans, namely Cameron Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith. I'm sure that they're going to be available. Very high chance that they get traded, if not by draft night, maybe within the next few weeks during free agency. So this is their cap sheet heading into next season. This is the following one, 25-26. And I'm breaking this up to show how much cap space they're projected to have. So a couple things, I included Nick Claxton because I still think he gets resigned. And this is a salary projection I made. You can see more context on how I got there in the Nets video I did a couple weeks ago. And they are projected to have over $70 million in cap space. Now, that doesn't factor in Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharpe. I discussed their situations where they can extend them, but if they do, they're going to lose some of that cap space. So something they could do is maybe they choose not to extend Cam Thomas in this upcoming offseason and let him be a free agent next summer. So then they have this $12 million interfering with their cap space. So instead of having $73 million, it'd be closer to $60 million. And they can spend all that amount and then go over the cap to re-sign Cam Thomas. But there's a very good chance that this projection is even higher regardless if they end up trading Cam Johnson or Dorian Finney-Smith. So that's where I see the Nets going from here. I think they're not done. They're probably going to make some more trades. Do I think they're going to potentially just get more picks? I don't know. If I were them, I would probably try to get some players that might be available. Like, let's just say the Pistons, for example, they decide that Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, that duo is not going to work long term. Maybe Jaden Ivey can be had. Can you parlay a bunch of those picks for a guy like him? They definitely got to get some young cornerstones that they can build behind. But yeah, this is my analysis of the Knicks Nets trade. Wild stuff. And yeah, this is quite the way to start off free agency.